everybody, Marcus here. Now I want to remind everybody of our pact that for every 1,000 subscribers I receive on this channel, I will give away one copy of Cyberlink's PowerDirector 13 Ultra software. So please consider liking this video, sharing it, subscribing, or even just listening to the very end. As Easter has just passed, I wanted to dedicate a video to our unsung MGTOW brothers in the Catholic Church, namely the priests, bishops, and monks. Though we normally do not look to these sort of men when we think of MGTOW, I think it is relevant to point out the MGTOW undercurrents in the Catholic Church. So firstly, the Catholic Church is an all-boys club and has been like this since the start. Only men can be ordained as deacons, priests, or bishops. Mount Athos in northern Greece is the home of 20 Catholic monasteries and 2,000 or so monks. It's also referred to as a holy mountain and has had a legal prohibition of the entry of women since the Byzantine Emperor Constantine Monomachos proclaimed it as such in the year 1046. Mount Athos, though residing on what is typically acknowledged as Greek territory, is in fact its own state, a country for men only. If you'd like to visit Mount Athos, you need to be a man, have short hair, and get a special visa from the Pilgrims Bureau in Thessaloniki, Greece. Now, we're all familiar with the idea of chivalry, but perhaps we need to make a distinction before we move on. Chivalry, as portrayed in the gallant knight-errant riding with his barded horse through the fiefdoms of feudal Europe, defending the weak from those who would abuse them, is only one meaning, which we apply to the word, and we will not concern ourselves with this meaning. The second meaning we apply to chivalry is that of the gentleman performing servile acts on behalf of women. Opening doors, pulling out chairs, standing when they enter the room, walking on the side of the sidewalk closest to the gutter, courtship rituals such as buying flowers, writing and reciting poetry. This is the meaning of chivalry that we are concerned with. Well, where did the second type of chivalry come from? To answer this, we'll need to go back to the early 12th century Europe, and more specifically to the royal courts of the various monarchs at the time. As always, gynocentrism flourishes on grounds consecrated with female privilege and leisure. You see, aristocratic men had a bit of a problem. They were all wealthy to one degree or another. They all possessed land and power to some extent, and they had to marry other aristocratic women in order to avoid a reputational disaster. Their options included a whole lot of spoiled princesses, and some of these spoiled princesses were literally princesses who were spoiled. So their problem was as follows. Since these men were so similar on many levels, how could they distinguish themselves in the eyes of women who favored they wanted to win? Well, the solution presented itself in the form of courtly love. Now, courtly love, as in the mating rituals of aristocrats and royalty, eventually dripped down to the peasantry through the troubadours over the 1,000 years since its inception, and became what we now look upon as chivalry. Okay, but what is courtly love? Well, to best answer this, I want to turn your attention to the Catholic chaplain Andreas Capellanus, or Andrew the Chaplain, who is presumed to be a courtier to Marie de Champagne, a French princess, daughter of King Louis VII of France. Now, Capellanus wrote a very interesting book around 1184 entitled The Art of Courtly Love. You see, this book is a pickup artist manual based on the mores of the 12th century. It's one of the most hilariously revealing books I have ever read on gynocentrism, and it should really be required reading for every MGTOW who's serious about investigating female nature. So, the art of courtly love is broken down into 3 sections. The first section, Introduction to the Treatise of Love, starts off with a definition of love that I want to read to you right here. Love is a certain inborn suffering derived from the sight of the excessive meditation upon the beauty of the opposite sex, which causes each one to wish above all things the embrace of the other, and by common desire to carry out all of love's precepts in the other's embrace. That love is suffering is easy to see, for before the love becomes equally balanced on both sides, there is no torment greater, since the lover is always in fear that his love may not gain its desire, and that he is wasting his effort. He fears, too, that rumors of it may get abroad, and he fears everything that might harm it in any way. For before things are perfected, a slight disturbance often spoils them. If he is a poor man, he also fears that the woman may scorn his poverty. If he is ugly, He fears that she may despise his lack of beauty, or may give her love to a more handsome man. If he is rich, he fears that his parsimony in the past may stand in his way. To tell the truth, no one can number the fears of one single lover. This kind of love, then, is a suffering which is felt by only one of the persons and may be called single love. But even after both are in love, the fears that arrive are just as great. For each of the lovers fears that what he has acquired with so much effort may be lost through the effort of someone else, which is certainly much worse for a man than if, having no hope, he sees that his efforts are accomplishing nothing. For it is worse to lose the things you are seeking than to be deprived of a gain you merely hope for. The lover fears, too, that he may offend his loved one in some way. Indeed, he fears so many things that it would be difficult to tell them. That this suffering is inborn, I shall show you clearly, because if you look at the truth and distinguish carefully, you will see that it does not arise out of any action. Only from the reflection of the mind upon what it sees does this suffering come. For when a man sees some woman fit for love and shaped according to his taste, he begins at once to lust after her in his heart. Then the more he thinks about her, the more he burns with love, until he comes to a fuller meditation. Presently, he begins to think about the fashioning of the woman and to differentiate her limbs, to think about what she does and to pry into the secrets of her body, and he desires to put each part of it to the fullest use. Then after he has come to this complete meditation, love cannot hold the reins, but he proceeds at once to action. Straight away he strives to get a helper and to find an intermediary. He begins to plan how he may find favor with her, and he begins to seek a place and a time opportune for talking. He looks upon a brief hour as a very long year, because he cannot do anything fast enough to suit his eager mind. It is well known that many things happen to him in this manner. This inborn suffering comes, therefore, from seeing and meditating. Not every kind of meditation can be the cause of love. An excessive one is required. For a restrained thought does not, as a rule, return to the mind, and so love cannot arise from it. So Capellanus has already set the tone that love is a suffering that a man is stricken with that can only be resolved through acquiring the object of his love. Several of the chapters that follow this definition expand on this definition by inquiring on where the word love comes from, what kind of people can possess love, and what the effect of love is on the person. Ironically, later in the book, Capellanus strongly asserts that love cannot exist within a marriage, and that marriage always kills love where it existed before. However, the very bulk of this section, and of the book as a whole, is a series of 9 dialogues between a man and a woman. Now, during the 12th century, there were different classes of people. Capellanus focuses on the most privileged classes, namely, in order from lowest to highest, the middle class, or more specifically, wealthy men who are not noble by birth, then the lower nobility, and finally, the upper nobility. So the dialogues are as follows. 1. How should a middle-class man court a middle-class woman? 2. How should a middle-class man court a lower nobility woman? 3. How should a middle-class man court an upper nobility woman? 4. How should a lower nobility man court a middle-class woman? 5. How should a lower nobility man court a lower nobility woman? 6. How should a lower nobility man court an upper nobility woman? And the same is done for the 3 combinations of the higher nobility man. Now, I want to read to you a little bit from the last dialogue, the higher nobility man who wishes to court the higher nobility woman. Now, imagine to yourself a prince who will be king one day saying this to some princess. If a man of the higher nobility should seek the love of a woman of the same class, he should first, above all things, follow the rule to use soft and gentle words, and he should take care not to say anything that would seem to deserve a reproof. For a noble woman or a woman of the higher nobility is found to be very ready and bold in censuring the deeds or the words of a man of the higher nobility, and she is very glad if she has a good opportunity to say something to ridicule him. Now Capellanus spells out verbatim what the higher nobility man should say. Indeed, I believe it is true that God has inclined all good men in this life to serve your desires and those of other ladies, and it seems to me that this is for the very clear reason that men cannot amount to anything or taste of the fountain of goodness unless they do this under the persuasion of ladies. But although all good things seem to proceed from women, and although God has given them a great privilege, and we say that they are the cause and origin of everything good, still they are clearly under the necessity of so conducing themselves towards those who do good deeds, and by their approval the good character of these men may seem in every respect to increase from strength to strength. For if their brightness were not to give light to anyone, it would be like a candle hidden under a bushel, whose beam is not able to drive away anybody's darkness or shine to anybody's profit. Therefore it is clear that every man should strive with all his might to be of service to ladies, so that he may shine by their grace. But the ladies are greatly obliged to be attentive to keeping the hearts of good men set upon doing good deeds, and to honor every man according to his desires. For whatever good things living men may say or do, they generally credit them all to the praise of women. And by serving these, they so act that they may pride themselves on the rewards they receive from them. And without these rewards, no man can be of use in this life, or be considered worthy of any praise. Now I know many men who are sure they have been given perfect love, and I know others who are maintained only by the milk of nourishing hope. But I, who have neither perfect love nor the gift of hope, am more sustained merely by the pure thought of you, which I do have, than all other lovers are by unnumbered solaces. Now, I think it is pretty clear, based on what the man is expected to say, what sort of ego he is dealing with. The dialogue goes on for about a dozen pages worth of shit tests and ends in nothing good. The sense you get by reading these dialogues is that the sheer volume of demands placed upon a man to even be considered a suitable partner is just extravagant. Capellanus, throughout his work, paints a picture of the near futility of ever pleasing a woman. The second section of the book deals with keeping a woman interested after you have won her favor, what to do if she cheats on you, and finishes with a list of the 33 rules of love. My personal favorite rules are Rule 13, when made public, love rarely endures. Rule 25, a true lover considers nothing good except what he thinks will please his beloved. And Rule 21, real jealousy always increases the feeling of love.